The sun was dying over the ridges of Dry Creek, turning the world blood-red. The wind carried the low moan of dust devils and the lonely creak of a half-broken windmill. Sheriff Amos Clay, once a man feared by outlaws and respected by townsfolk, stood on the porch of his silent ranch, staring at the land he'd stopped loving 5 years ago. 5 years. That's how long it had been since his wife Lydia vanished in a stagecoach ambush near Apache Ridge. They said the bandits left no survivors. Amos had buried a scorched locket and a handful of ash beneath the oak tree behind the house. What the undertaker swore were her remains. Since that day, the sheriff had lived like a ghost himself. He spoke to no one except his horse, ate beans from a can, and rode patrols through the desert not to uphold the law, but to lose himself in the emptiness. The world had ended for him long ago. Until the morning they showed up, 2 little girls, no older than 6, barefoot, sunburned, walking down the dirt road toward his ranch, as if they belonged there. Their dresses were torn, their hair tangled by the desert wind. And when they saw him, they stopped, blinking against the sunlight. Then one of them said a word that struck Amos like a bullet to the heart. "Daddy?" He froze. The other girl ran forward, clutching a small piece of cloth in her hand. "Are you Sheriff Clay?" she asked in a trembling voice. He nodded slowly, unsure what to say. The first girl smiled through cracked lips. "Mama said you'd find us if we ever got lost." Amos's heart stopped. His hands trembled. He'd spent years trying to forget the sound of that word, Mama. Where's your mother?" he managed. The girls exchanged frightened glances. The older one said quietly, "She's down by the creek, sir. She told us to find you before the sun got too high." He didn't ask more, didn't think. He grabbed his hat, swung onto his horse, and thundered down the trail toward the creek, dust rising behind him like smoke from a gunshot. And there, by the water, half hidden beneath a willow tree, he found her, Lydia. Her face was thinner, her body weak, but it was her, those same eyes, green as the desert sage, staring up at him from the edge of death. For a long moment he just stood there, gripping the saddle horn like a drowning man. "Amos," she whispered. "You still wear it." He looked down at his hand. The wedding ring, the one he'd refused to take off, even when the world told him she was gone. "I buried you," he said hoarsely. "God help me, I buried you." Her lips trembled. "They left me for dead, bandits. I was shot. The stage burned. A family found me days later. I was heavy with the twins. I wanted to come home, Amos, but I didn't even know where home was anymore." The twins. He turned, saw them peeking from behind the willow, clutching each other. They had her hair, her eyes, and his stubborn chin. He took a step closer, then another, until he knelt beside her. "You came back," he said, voice cracking like dry wood. Her eyes glistened. "I told the girls their father was a good man. I told them he'd still be waiting." Amos pulled her into his arms, the scent of dust and memory thick around them. The twins ran to him, hugging his legs. For the first time in 5 years, Amos Clay wept. That night, the ranch was alive again. The fire in the hearth burned bright. The smell of soup filled the air. And laughter, a sound Amos thought he'd never hear again, echoed through the house. Lydia lay in his bed, too weak to stand, but smiling through her exhaustion. The twins sat by the fire, eyes wide, as Amos told them stories about the woman they barely knew. "Your mama once tamed a wild Mustang no man could ride," he said. "Named her Blaze. That horse only listened to her. Wouldn't even let me near." The girls giggled, looking at their mother. Lydia smiled faintly. "And he was jealous of that horse," she teased. He chuckled for the first time in years. "Still am." But when the fire died low, Amos went outside. The stars above were cold and sharp. He leaned on the railing and stared into the dark fields. Something in his gut twisted, an unease he hadn't felt since his days chasing outlaws. If Lydia had been alive all this time, someone had wanted her dead. And if she'd come back now, it might not be over. At dawn, he found the proof. Tracks, wagon wheels and horse prints, fresh in the dirt near the creek. Whoever had left them was close. Amos followed them up through the ridge, rifle in hand, the wind stinging his face. When he reached the rise, he saw them, 3 men on horseback. Rough, scarred, armed. The one in front wore a black hat Amos would have known anywhere. Jeb Cutter, the outlaw who'd sworn revenge the day Amos arrested his brother. The same man rumored to have led the Apache Ridge ambush 5 years ago. Well, hell, Cutter drawled when he saw him. If it ain't the ghost of Sheriff Clay. Heard your wife made it home. Thought we'd pay our respects. Amos's jaw clenched. You left her to die, Cutter smirked. We just finished what life started, Sheriff. She should have stayed buried. Amos raised his rifle. You should have too. The world went silent for half a heartbeat. Then a gun roared. The first shot clipped Cutter's shoulder. His men scattered for cover, returning fire. Bullets whined past Amos's head, slicing through cactus and rock. He dropped behind a boulder, fired again, heard one of them fall. Another bullet grazed his arm, hot and sharp. He gritted his teeth, reloaded, and moved uphill. Cutter was running for his horse, blood trailing down his arm. You can't protect her forever, he shouted. Amos sighted down his rifle. Watch me. The final shot echoed through the valley, rolling like thunder. Cutter crumpled, dust swallowing him whole. When Amos rode back to the ranch, blood dried on his sleeve, Lydia was standing on the porch. The twins clung to her skirt, eyes wide. He dropped from the saddle. She didn't speak, just reached for him. He took her hand, the world shrinking to that single touch. It's over, he whispered. Tears welled in her eyes. I knew you'd find me. You always do. He wrapped his arms around her, and the girls joined them. 4 shadows holding on as the sun rose behind them, painting the land gold. That night, peace settled over the Clay Ranch for the first time in years. The twins slept curled together near the fire. Lydia rested in his arms, her breathing soft and even. Amos sat awake, staring at her face. He traced the scar along her cheek, a line of pain and survival. You don't have to run anymore, he whispered. She smiled faintly. I never wanted to run. I just wanted to come home. Outside, coyotes called from the hills, their cries lonely but not mournful. The desert wind swept through the open window, carrying the scent of sage and distant rain. Amos looked toward the oak tree where he'd buried her ashes. Ashes that weren't hers. Tomorrow he'd dig them up. He'd set the grave right. He'd put the past where it belonged. For now, though, he just watched her breathe, her hand resting over his heart. Sometimes, he thought, death doesn't take what it wants. Sometimes it just waits. And sometimes, if you're stubborn enough or broken enough, love drags itself out of the grave and walks home barefoot across the desert. By morning, the ranch looked new again. The twins chased each other through the yard, laughing, sunlight catching in their hair. Lydia watched from the porch, a blanket over her shoulders. Amos saddled 2 small ponies he'd once bought for children he thought he'd never have. He lifted the girls into the saddles, adjusting their reins. Hold tight, he told them. And if you ever get lost, we find you, one twin finished, smiling. He nodded. That's right. Lydia's eyes shone with tears. They're just like you, she said. He looked at her, the woman who'd come back from the dead, the family he never thought he'd have again, and smiled softly. No, he said. They're better. The day stretched long and golden, the sky clear, the world quiet, except for the laughter of children and the creak of saddle leather. And for the first time in 5 long, lonely years, Sheriff Amos Clay believed in miracles again. Because some ghosts don't haunt, they come home. Some goodbyes don't last, they just take the long way back. And in a land where death and dust take everything, one widowed rancher finally got something back he never thought he would, his heart.